to Miami Vice is that it was very specific to a place and a time and and certain sensibilities.
At his lowest, Don Johnson was broke, out of work, and drowning in chaos. Hollywood had labeled him unreliable, and his wild lifestyle made him a risky bet. Then came a script that felt like it was written just for him. But getting the part wasn't easy. This is the jaw-dropping story of how Johnson turned rejection into a triumph that changed TV forever. What happened behind the scenes will leave you speechless. Stay tuned to find out. Don Johnson's story begins on December 15, 1949, in Flat Creek, Missouri, where he was born into a world of hardship. His parents, Nell and Wayne, were teenagers, just 16 and 19, struggling to make ends meet. Nell worked as a beautician while Wayne labored as a farmer, but their young age and lack of resources left the family in deep poverty. Johnson later described their situation as living below the national poverty level. When Johnson was 5 years old, the family moved to Wichita, Kansas, hoping for a better life. Wayne got a job at Boeing Aircraft, and within 2 years, he was promoted to crew chief. But even with a steady income, life didn't become easier. The family of 6 crammed into a small house with just one bathroom in Boeing's employee housing. Johnson later admitted they were still plenty poor, and the move, while offering some stability, couldn't fix the tensions brewing within the family. By the time Johnson turned 12, his parents' marriage fell apart. The divorce was a turning point that added a new layer of chaos to his already unstable life. At first, Johnson lived with his mother, but she struggled to handle his rebellious behavior. Johnson later described himself as a 12-year-old hellion, and his mother couldn't keep him in line. This turbulent phase pushed Johnson further into trouble, setting the stage for the next big change in his life. Eventually, Johnson's behavior landed him in juvenile court. This was a wake-up call and a moment that altered the course of his teenage years. The judge, recognizing his downward spiral, decided Johnson would be better off living with his father. Moving in with his father turned out to be a surprising blessing. Despite their earlier strained relationship, Johnson and his father began to bond. Wayne taught him to hunt and fish, introducing Johnson to the outdoors. Johnson later described these moments as magical, offering him a sense of structure and connection he hadn't experienced before. In 1967, Johnson's life took a surprising turn at Wichita South High School. He was kicked off the football team after falling asleep during business class. At first, it seemed like a small mistake, but it ended up changing everything for him. Football had been his dream, the path he hoped would take him to college. Losing that chance hit him hard. To make things worse, it meant he needed extra credits to graduate. That's how he found himself signing up for a drama class, a choice he didn't make because of interest, but simply because he had to. At the time, Johnson was juggling 2 part-time jobs, one as a butcher's apprentice and another selling ladies' shoes, which left him exhausted in class. But what seemed like a setback turned into something incredible. When he walked into that first drama class, he discovered a world he never knew existed. His drama teacher noticed his potential right away and began to guide him. Through this class, Johnson was introduced to plays by great writers like Shakespeare, Tennessee Williams, and Molière. It was a whole new experience for him, far removed from his Missouri upbringing. Drama class became more than just a way to earn credits. It became a place where he felt alive. He stayed after school to practice monologues and learn about characters, diving into every role with surprising dedication. By his senior year, Johnson had his big moment. He landed the lead role of Tony in West Side Story, a major production at his school. Before that, He had been in smaller plays like Burnt Cork and Melody and The Hullabaloo, but this was different. Playing Tony required him to perform complex songs and emotional scenes, and he delivered a performance so moving that even local theater critics took notice. The production ran for several nights, and university scouts came to see it. This role marked a turning point. As graduation approached, Johnson auditioned for the University of Kansas's summer repertory program. His audition left a lasting impression, earning him a partial scholarship that was soon upgraded to a full one. This was a life-changing opportunity. Coming from a modest background, he didn't have many options for higher education, but the scholarship opened doors. It wasn't just about studying drama. It gave him hands-on experience in theater and set him on a path he had never considered before. At just 19, Don Johnson arrived in Los Angeles in 1969, with little more than big dreams and a lot of determination. He had dropped out of the University of Kansas's drama program and spent a short time at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. Los Angeles was his chance to make it big, but it wasn't easy. His first significant role came in a controversial stage production of Fortune and Men's Eyes, where he played Smitty in a raw and unsettling scene involving prison violence. The role turned heads in Hollywood, but not always in the way Johnson hoped. He struggled to find steady work and lived far below the poverty line, scraping by with odd acting gigs. Despite his father's steady job at Boeing, Don couldn't bring himself to ask for help. He had left behind a tough family life in Wichita and was determined to make it on his own. In 1970, Johnson landed his first film role in The Magic Garden of Stanley's Sweetheart. MGM hoped the movie would capture the rebellious energy of Easy Rider. Set in the 1960s New York, it followed Stanley, a dropout from Columbia University, exploring the counterculture world of sex, drugs, and filmmaking. Johnson played the lead, and the film included daring psychedelic sequences and controversial scenes, including a hallucinated orgy. The backdrop of the film was as striking as its content, with scenes shot around the early construction of the World Trade Center. But despite the hype, the movie flopped. Johnson found himself back at square one, searching for his next opportunity. For the next 15 years, Johnson's life was a constant struggle. He lived below the poverty line, a situation that left deep emotional scars. To cope, he threw himself into a fast-paced, hard-partying lifestyle. His daily drinking routine was shocking, starting with beer in the morning, moving to martinis and wine during the day, and finishing with brandy at night. By 1981, he was infamous in Hollywood for what he called setting land speed records for partying. Johnson once admitted he drank enough each day to knock out a small army. During the filming of A Boy and His Dog in 1975, crew members often found him still drunk from the night before, staggering onto the set. His routine was relentless, sometimes partying for days without sleep. In one infamous incident in 1979, he went 72 hours straight before collapsing on a film set. By 1983, his behavior was so erratic that his agent stopped scheduling morning auditions, knowing he wouldn't be sober enough to show up. His excesses weren't just limited to alcohol. His relationships were equally chaotic, filled with drama and scandal. Don's love life was notorious. He married for the first time at 19, but the marriage lasted only 3 days. His second marriage ended in just a week. His relationship with Melanie Griffith began when she was only 14, and he was 22, a controversial start that didn't stop them from marrying twice, first for 6 months in 1976, and then again from 1989 to 1996. Between 1976 and 1981, he dated a string of actresses and models, often juggling multiple relationships at once. The drama peaked at the 1981 Golden Globes when two of his girlfriends found out about each other at the event, causing a scene that made headlines. By 1984, Johnson's life was falling apart. Years of substance abuse had left him nearly broke and out of work. He had lost his home to unpaid taxes and was living in a small apartment in Malibu. His erratic behavior cost him roles, and he missed 12 straight auditions because he was too intoxicated to show up. Insurance companies refused to bond him for film projects, making him unhireable. His breaking point came after a 3-day binge left him unconscious in a hotel lobby. Patty D'Arbanville, one of his exes, organized an intervention that forced him to confront his addiction. This moment pushed him to seek sobriety for the first time in late 1984. Professionally, Johnson's reputation was in tatters. Casting directors referred to him as a relief pitcher, someone they'd only consider after exhausting every other option. Between 1980 and 1984, he auditioned for 152 roles, but landed just 3 minor parts. Casting notes from that time described him as unreliable, high risk, and a last resort. One casting director even admitted his headshot was kept in a file labeled "Emergencies Only." In 1984, Don Johnson was fishing in Stuart, Florida, completely broke and ready to give up on acting. When his agent called about a potential role, Johnson's response became the stuff of legend. "I'm not doing that. I'm fishing." After 14 years of failed pilots, he had had enough. He was tired of rejection, especially after 5 flops with NBC, 3 of which were for Brandon Tartikoff. His agent wouldn't give up, though. They argued for hours, with Johnson refusing to leave his fishing spot. Finally, after relentless persuasion, he agreed to fly to Los Angeles for an audition. That decision would change television forever. When Johnson read the script for Miami Vice, it was like someone had written it just for him. He later said it felt almost supernatural, as if the words on the page were his own thoughts and feelings. The character of Sonny Crockett, a divorced ex-college football player living on a boat with his pet alligator, Elvis, felt so real to him. Crockett's mix of toughness, cynicism, and vulnerability struck a deep chord. Johnson told the creators he would make the character tougher than nails and softer than cotton, bringing a complexity that would define the role. Even though Johnson felt an instant connection to Crockett, getting the part wasn't easy. The producers considered big names like Nick Nolte, Jeff Bridges, and Mickey Rourke. Larry Wilcox from Chips was a serious contender, and even Mark Harmon was in the running. But during his audition, Johnson showed a unique understanding of the character. He brought something no one else could. Tony Yerkovich, the creator of Miami Vice, couldn't stop thinking about him. Despite Johnson's string of failed pilots, Yerkovich saw something special. After Johnson nailed the audition, the project faced delay after delay. Frustrated and unsure of what would happen, Johnson took a role in an independent film called Cease Fire, which was being shot in Miami. Just as he wrapped up that movie, Yerkovich called him from Los Angeles to officially offer the role of Sonny Crockett. By then, Johnson was fed up with the back and forth, but he knew this was his shot. He accepted immediately, not knowing how much it would change his life. At 34 years old, Johnson was finally getting his big break, a late age for a Hollywood newcomer. NBC had serious doubts about him because of his history with failed pilots. But his age and experience turned out to be assets. They gave Crockett the weary, rugged charm that made him unforgettable. Knowing this was his last chance, Johnson threw himself into the role. He trained hard, lived clean, and gave everything he had to the character. His dedication paid off. By the second season of Miami Vice, he was earning $100,000 per episode, making him one of the highest-paid actors on TV, alongside legends like Larry Hagman, and Tom Selleck. What started as a desperate audition became a career-defining role. In 1985, Johnson received an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series. He followed this with back-to-back Golden Globe wins in 1986 and 1987 for Best Actor in a TV Series. Miami Vice itself became a cultural phenomenon, earning 33 award nominations and winning 10, including multiple Emmys. For Johnson, the success was particularly sweet because it came after years of struggle. After Miami Vice ended in 1990, Don Johnson faced an uphill battle to move beyond the shadow of Sonny Crockett. To avoid being permanently typecast, he turned down several detective roles and even changed his wardrobe, but the media still tied him to Crockett's look. Escaping that persona was harder than he imagined. Johnson's post-Vice film career didn't take off the way he had hoped. His first major movie after the show, Dead Bang, directed by the renowned John Frankenheimer, barely made a ripple at the box office. Then came The Hot Spot and Harley Davidson and The Marlboro Man. Both flopped commercially, but gained cult followings years later. The hardest hit came with Paradise, a movie he made with his then-wife Melanie Griffith. Critics tore it apart, and audiences didn't show up. These back-to-back failures led people to label him as a TV actor who couldn't make it in film. By 1995, Johnson was at a turning point. His film career hadn't worked out, and he thought about walking away from acting altogether. Instead, he made a smart move by creating Nash Bridges. The show ran for 6 seasons and earned him around $40 million. More than just financial success, it gave him a fresh start on TV, proving he was more than just Sonny Crockett. It also set the stage for his later career revival, with standout roles in films like Django Unchained and Knives Out. Johnson's comeback wasn't immediate. It was a steady climb. He stopped chasing leading man roles and took interesting supporting parts that showed his versatility. He even appeared in international films to expand his reach. His big break came with Robert Rodriguez's Machete, 2010, which led Quentin Tarantino to cast him in Django Unchained, 2012. These roles changed how people saw him, transforming him into a respected character actor. The success of Nash Bridges also led to a $19 million legal settlement in 2013 after a dispute over his ownership of the show. This financial win gave him the freedom to pick roles he truly wanted, helping him balance work between TV and film. Today, Johnson is seen as a veteran actor who reinvented himself, proving that even after setbacks, persistence and smart choices can lead to success. Don Johnson's love story with Kelly Flieger began in 1996 at a birthday party for San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown. At the time, Johnson had been through multiple failed marriages, including 2 with Melanie Griffith, and many turbulent relationships. But when he saw Kelly, a 27-year-old kindergarten teacher, he felt something different. Turning to a friend at the party, he boldly declared, "I'm going to marry her," even though Kelly was dating Gavin Newsom, the future governor of California. They didn't start dating until late 1997, but once they did, their connection grew quickly. By April 1998, Kelly was seen wearing a dazzling 5.5-carat diamond engagement ring. A year later, on April 29, 1999, they married in a beautiful ceremony at a Pacific Heights mansion in San Francisco. The event was officiated by Mayor Willie Brown, with Robert Wagner as Johnson's best man. After years of a wild lifestyle, Johnson found stability with Kelly. They moved to Montecito in Santa Barbara County, far from the chaos of Hollywood. Kelly, standing 6 feet tall and continuing her work as a Montessori teacher, became the steady presence Johnson needed. Reflecting on their life together, Johnson credits his youthful energy to marrying right. joking that a bad marriage can age you fast. Their home life marked a complete change for him, especially after a past filled with substance abuse and the overwhelming attention from fans during his Miami Vice fame. Their family grew quickly, bringing Johnson the kind of happiness he hadn't experienced before. Their first child, Atherton Grace Johnson, was born on December 28, 1999. Grace later pursued photography at USC and even modeled for Gucci in 2021. Their second child, Jasper Breckenridge Johnson, arrived on June 6, 2002, showing a passion for sports, especially basketball. Their youngest, Deacon James Johnson, was born on April 29, 2006, on their 7th wedding anniversary. Johnson, ecstatic about Deacon's birth, said he was over the moon times 6. The children were raised in Santa Barbara, away from Hollywood's glare, and developed interests in music, sports, and the arts, enjoying a grounded and creative upbringing. Johnson's journey to this stable family life wasn't easy. His past was filled with turbulent relationships, including a controversial one with Melanie Griffith that began when she was just 14 and he was 22. They married when she turned 18 but divorced months later, remarried in 1989, and split again in 1996. Johnson also had a son, Jesse, with Patty D'Arbanville, and high-profile relationships with actress Tanya Tucker and even Barbra Streisand. Each failed relationship taught him lessons, shaping how he approached his marriage to Kelly. An unlikely source of wisdom helped Johnson transform his approach to love. During a tough period in his life, Bob Dylan shared some simple advice with him. Love is about kindness, trust, and respect. Those words stayed with Johnson and became the foundation of his marriage. Now, 25 years later, Johnson and Kelly celebrated their milestone anniversary in 2024 with a big dinner and party. Johnson gifted her several different blings to mark the occasion. Reflecting on their long-lasting relationship, he shared that their happiness comes from being so deeply in sync with each other that trust, kindness, and respect remain unspoken but ever present. Their marriage stands as proof that even Hollywood's most infamous bachelor can find enduring love.